Welcome to Dark Hours FM, where real horror meets the unknown. You can now listen to every episode, explore new stories, and uncover what hides behind the mic at DarkHours-FM.com, the official home of the dark. Tonight's story, Season 2, Episode 9. The campsite that wouldn't stay empty. Let's begin. Mark arrived at Pine Ridge Campground just before sunset. The sky washed in dull orange and gray, like it had already begun to decay. The ranger station stood empty, windows filmed with dust, a single porch light flickering weakly before shutting off completely. A handwritten sign hung crooked on the door, the ink smeared as if it had been written in a hurry. Grounds open. Camp at your own risk. Mark read it twice, feeling a slight tightening in his chest. He couldn't explain. He had camped alone plenty of times. Remote trails, abandoned forest, off-season sites. Silence didn't bother him, but this place felt different. It felt paused. He drove deeper into the campground, gravel crunching loudly under his tires, the sound echoing too long between the trees. Most campsites were clearly abandoned, fire pits filled with leaves, picnic tables split and collapsing inward, old site markers hanging crooked on rusted posts. He almost turned around twice before finally stopping at Site 17, tucked far from the road, backed against a dense wall of trees with a narrow creek winding along one edge. The moment he stepped out of the truck, the air felt colder. Not the natural chill of autumn, but a damp, sinking cold that seemed to cling to his clothes. The first thing he noticed was the ground. Footprints, fresh ones, bootprints pressed deep into the dirt, circling the fire pit again and again, as if someone had been pacing. The fire pit itself wasn't cold. Ash inside was gray, not white, and when he held his hand over it, he felt faint warmth. Someone had been here recently. That should have been enough to make him leave. Instead, he convinced himself another camper had passed through earlier in the day. He set up his tent, deliberately keeping his back to the trees, and built a fire as daylight drained from the sky. Night came fast, too fast. The firelight barely pushed the darkness back, and the forest beyond seemed to absorb every flicker, every spark. The woods were unnaturally quiet. No owls, no insects, no distant movement. Mark ate in silence, his ears straining for sounds that never came. When he finally stood to douse the fire, he heard footsteps, slow, heavy, unhurried. They weren't close, but they weren't far either. Leaves crunched under deliberate weight, one step at a time. Mark stood perfectly still, listening. No voices followed. No flashlight beam cut through the trees. The footsteps stopped the instant he focused on them, as if whatever was walking had noticed his attention and frozen in place. He told himself it was an animal. It had to be. But something about the rhythm felt wrong. Too even, too intentional. Later, as the fire burned low, he noticed movement across the clearing. A faint orange glow flickered between the trees. Another fire, small, controlled, steady. Close enough that he should have heard someone arrive. Close enough that he should have seen them pass his sight. He stood, waved his flashlight, and called out. His voice sounded thin, swallowed almost immediately by the trees. No response. The fire didn't flicker. It didn't move. Then it vanished, not faded, not dimmed, gone, like someone had switched it off. Mark's stomach twisted. He zipped himself into his tent early, every instinct screaming that he didn't belong there. Inside the tent, the forest felt closer, louder. The nylon walls stretched and snapped softly in the wind. Every sound amplified. Sometime after midnight, Mark woke abruptly, his heart racing before he even understood why. Then he heard it, breathing, slow, wet, close enough to fog the tent wall. Footsteps circled the tent once, twice, stopping directly behind his head. He lay frozen, afraid even to blink. The breathing paused, then a voice whispered his name, not angry, not threatening, tired, like someone who hadn't slept in a long time, like someone relieved to finally find another human voice. Mark didn't respond. He didn't move. He held his breath until his lungs burned. Eventually, the footsteps retreated, fading into the woods. Sound slowly returned, water in the creek, wind through branches. But the silence that followed felt worse than the noise. At sunrise, Mark crawled out of the tent, exhausted and shaking. Across the clearing, where the second fire had been, stood another campsite, fully formed, a collapsed tent, its fabric rotted and stiff, a lantern rusted shut, sleeping bags moldy and sunken into the dirt. Everything looked abandoned for years, except the fire pit. Fresh ash, still warm. Mark left immediately. When he reported the incident to the Park Service, the ranger on the phone went quiet when he mentioned Site 17. After a long pause, the ranger admitted the site had been officially closed years ago. A solo camper had gone missing there. His belongings were found exactly as Mark described. During the search, rangers kept finding a second campsite appearing overnight, complete, warm, occupied, but every morning it was gone. They stopped searching after 3 weeks. Because whatever was camping there never checked out, never left. Thanks for joining us in the dark. Some stories fade with the light. Others stay with you. We'll see you next time, if you make it.